Okay, it's about 2 minutes after the hour, so why don't we get started? So first of all, thanks everyone for being here. My name is Stan Pinnell. I'm a senior account executive here at Revelwood, and I'm joined by my colleague Haley, who will be showing you today's overview demo of the adaptive planning solution here in a few moments. Now, I just want to take a few minutes to give you an idea of what to expect today. First, some background on Revelwood. We are a platinum business partner of Workday, and what that means is that we are part of an extremely select group of partners that help you evaluate and implement the adaptive planning platform. We have over 25 plus years of experience and are made up of a diverse team of certified experienced consultants that bring decades of financial operations and systems know-how. We've implemented over 150 adaptive customers over the past couple of years and continue to grow. Not only that, but we also help existing adaptive customers with model enhancements, integrations, support services, and one-on-one training. I'm aware that some of you may be here because you have an active initiative to get into a cloud FP&A solution, and some of you may just be here to learn or you're curious. Either way, we greatly appreciate you taking 15 minutes with us in the next few days just to have a quick chat and see what your current challenges are, if you have any feedback, and whether there are resources that we can follow up with. An important thing to know is that the demo today is meant just to really give you a glimpse into what adaptive planning can do. We should be finished in 45 minutes, and during that time, everyone will be on mute. But if you have a question, there's a Q&A button down at the bottom. Please enter your questions there, and we will try to get to it at the end of the presentation. If not, we will make sure to get back to you via email after the presentation. I only have a few slides, so before we get started with the demo, just a quick overview. Adaptive planning is a place where you can do your modeling, reporting, and analytics all in one place, so that everything that you need is in one solution, and it will act as your central source of truth, if you will. So typically we're talking with finance teams, and of course we're pulling in the general ledger data, but Adaptive can connect to any data source that you need it to, because at the end of the day, data is data, and you'll be able to bring all of that data together into one place to model and report on with confidence. And this slide gives you an idea of some of the other areas of the business that you can model and plan using Adaptive. It is not just limited to the core FP&A and finance teams. You can model out really any operational of the business that you want to with the Adaptive Planning platform. So I'm sure you're thinking, this is really awesome stuff, Stan, but what separates Adaptive from the rest of the pack? Great question, everyone. Now, Adaptive runs on Elastic Hypercube technology, which is a patented Workday technology, and this is a key competitive differentiator. I'm not going to talk about the technical specifics because it isn't that important for now, but the reason is key is because it makes the solution scalable and able to have an unlimited number of dimensions and unlimited number of versions and scenarios. And when your system needs more processing power, the system is intelligent and expands to give you that power. But what's equally important is that you have this power without losing any ease of use and maintainability. As you will see in the demo today, everything is extremely intuitive with drag and drop functionality so that end users can own the system without assistance from IT. And that's why Adaptive has almost 6,000 customers globally in all types and different industries. This is way more than any of our competitors in the FP&A solution space. Did you know that Adaptive has a 95% gross retention rate? This speaks to the value of what these customers are getting out of Adaptive across all different types of industries, as you can see here. And this is growing rapidly. As you can see, this is across many different types of technologies and industries. Our commitment to innovation and customer success is also recognized by the industry. It's a product that gets the highest user ratings and delivers business agility in times of change, and you can expect the software to be easy to use, implement, and maintain as your business scales. Being ranked at #1 for ease of use, customer experience, satisfaction, usability, and best return on investment, this should make you very excited to see Haley's demo now. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Haley, and she's going to take you through an overview demonstration of the solution.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Haley. And yeah, like Stan said, I'm going to be taking you through a pretty high level overview of what Adaptive can do. Just a couple of notes here. One, the data that we're going to be looking at has obviously already been loaded into the system. But just for a little bit of background, actuals data for your GL accounts or anything like that we're going to be looking at today is usually loaded on maybe a daily basis via an automated integration. So it's meant to be a single source of truth for your data where you literally don't have to do any manual intervention to know that your data is always up to date. Adaptive is data agnostic. So if you're curious about whether we can integrate with your system, the answer is yes, but if you'd like to know how, feel free to reach out to us. As Stan said, there is a Q&A question box. We'll try to get to as many as we can, but if we aren't able to get to you, we'll kind of chat afterwards. We will be looking at mostly GL-based data today, which is normally what everyone understands best, but just know that we can bring in operational metrics or any other sort of industry-specific systems that you might be thinking of. We're just going to keep today more on the high-level concepts and hopefully pique your interest in what Adaptive can do. So what we're looking at here is my home screen for Adaptive Planning. Adaptive can be accessed on any device, your Macs, your Windows computers, your iPad if you want, your cell phone if you're traveling. So it is a very versatile platform that you can access wherever you need to. My home screen is currently customized to a dashboard, which we will get into. That'll actually be one of our first topics today. But what I wanted to call out is that every single view we're going to look at today is customizable on an end user by end user basis. So where I find it useful to come in and see a snapshot of a company summary, maybe you want to make this a report, general announcements, your company website, anything along those lines. Adaptive truly is meant to kind of cater to the view that is most useful to the end user. What I'm actually going to do before I hop into kind of the functionality and the value you'll get from dashboards is start with our navigation pane. So what's really critical to remember with Adaptive is that your entire budgeting, planning, reporting, analytics process is contained directly in this cloud platform. There are no third-party tools. You're not having to kind of go outside and run an integration somewhere and then sign in somewhere else and run a report. It's all right here in this list. One other item I'll call out before I kind of talk about these individual tabs is just that I'm in an admin account right now. So from my view, I'm going to be able to see everything in the system without restrictions, but there is a lot of opportunity for kind of securing data and Adaptive. So for a lot of individuals, maybe your department heads or something along those lines, they might not need to see all of these tabs or all of the levels, which we'll get into what that means. And it's quite easy to restrict all of that. We'll kind of go into more detail. So last point here, and then we'll actually dig into the content, is just going to be that we're going to see a lot, not everything in Adaptive, obviously, with how much time we have, but we always approach Adaptive through a crawl, walk, run approach. So we're not saying, hey, let's do everything we're going to see right up front. Our job is really to sit down with you and figure out what pieces of Adaptive are going to drive the most value for you early, and then kind of go from there and develop into a more mature instance. So just a quick explanation of some of these tabs before we dig into the meat of the presentation. Sheets right here are going to be where you're doing all of your budgeting, your data entry, where calculations are running, all of that kind of thing. Right now, you'll see there are a lot of sheets in here. It's all configurable to how you and your business plan. And that's, again, part of kind of what we do at Revelwood is just actually walking through your business process with you and figuring out what sheets and models you actually need. This is a demo instance, which is why we have so much in here. Assumptions are honestly a pretty cool part of Adaptive, especially if you're coming from something like Excel or an Excel-based tool. So this is where you keep a lot of your key drivers for things like taxes and benefits for your workforce, your different sales drivers, anything along those lines. So what Adaptive does is if you make a change to a key driver or assumption in one of these sheets, it'll update across the entire system as soon as you save it. You're not waiting for a batch process to run. You're not having to go through every single cell and find everywhere you kind of are referencing that value and change a hard-coded number. It's all dynamic. You change it in one place, it updates everywhere. We'll get into reports and dashboards. There's a lot of visualization in Adaptive, and that's honestly what we're going to be spending the bulk of our time on today. Very light touch. I'm not going to go into it on today's webinar since it's not as applicable to everyone, but if you do have financial consolidation needs, intercompany eliminations, that kind of thing, we do have that availability. Processes and workflow, we also won't dig into too much today, but this is going to be where you can set up different workflows for your entire organization, directing people to exactly where they need to go to enter their budget, so on and so forth. Of course, our modeling and admin. And then the last two features here are going to be integration. So like I said, a bunch of different ways to get data into the system. Won't go into all of them right now. We already talked about integration, how we can bring data in from any system on an automatic basis. You can import CSV files. There's a lot of really good technical detail that happy to go into. Last piece here, Adaptive really is meant to be fully owned by the finance team. So that's going to give kind of more insight into individual plans. If you have any sort of issue or one of your end users has an issue, doesn't know how to do something, they're able to figure out exactly kind of how to troubleshoot that issue without having to submit a ticket to internal IT. So things like product documentation, seeing what other people are doing in your industry, and then also this nice little question mark that opens up a context-dependent knowledge base that will actually guess what you need help on based on where you are in the system. So there's a lot of intelligence that we'll be looking at today. And this is kind of the first piece is Adaptive really wants to make this easy for you to use. Cool. So let's go ahead and pop into dashboards here. I'm going to walk through first some of the core foundational elements of Adaptive. You'll see them across here. So first there's time. We can plan at whatever time granularity you're really looking for. Most of our clients will budget at a monthly level, but if you're in retail or something along those lines, retail, manufacturing, hospitality, you're probably looking at days or day parts. So we can also go down to that level of granularity. Levels are going to be your organizational structure that you plan at. So here we just have some imaginary companies, their countries, their locations, departments, all that good stuff. And this is also going to be the first line of security in Adaptive. So for instance, if I'm a sales north manager, that's the only level I'll be able to see in this dropdown. And all of my dashboards, report sheets will be automatically filtered to my department. So you're not having to maintain 10 different reports or 10 different dashboards for every single department that you want to look at. You just have one level structure and you can maintain security permissions through there. Now, as I make changes at any of these lower levels, so if I'm editing data at Sales North, that's my budget, I'm responsible for that, I'm entering in expenses or sales projections. As soon as I save that, it's going to immediately aggregate up towards my total company level. So again, that's really the kind of immediacy of how easily you can access and change data in Adaptive depending on your permissions. You're not waiting on a batch process or anything like that. Two more elements. One's going to be currency. So Adaptive does have built-in financial intelligence that will handle all of your multi-currency needs as we just load in exchange rates, which you can automate from your ERP. And Adaptive will go ahead and exchange between your different entities. So if I'm viewing a P&L for Canada, as soon as I click on operations, that's going to switch from CAD to USD for me without me needing to kind of do any manual intervention. You can also leverage versions, which I'm about to get into, to be able to do any sort of constant currency reporting for those of you who are coming from a multinational corporation. Last piece here is going to be version control. Versions are really great and Adaptive. Workday does not charge based on the number of versions you have or data you're storing, anything along those lines. So this is a really great way to organize your different versions of your budget. If you do a monthly rolling forecast, anything along those lines. You can also lock down these versions. So once you have a board approved budget, you'll be able to lock that down, still report off of it, but maintain data integrity by not allowing any more edits. Sweet. I know I'm going kind of fast, but just want to make sure we get through everything. We're going to dive a little bit more into dashboards now. So dashboards, obviously really nice to look at, but they're actually much more powerful than just standard static charts and graphs. So you have a few different options for being able to actually drill down and get the information behind each of these charts. What I like to kind of summarize this as is if you see a number or a chart in Adaptive, anywhere in Adaptive, sheets, models, reports, it's clickable. So you're always going to be able to see exactly where your data is coming from. So here I just opened Explore Cell, which we'll see a few times today. And I can actually see all of my supporting lines. We have a feature called Audit Trail. So this is really going to allow you to kind of open up who's made changes, what changes they have made. If you see kind of a budget line item that looks a little off, you can just pull an audit trail report, click into that little audit trail, and it'll give you that information of, okay, Stan made a change to this line item at this time. It changed from value A to value B. So that's going to help streamline you being able to tell, okay, who do I need to go to actually figure out why this number is here. The other option here is just pivoting based on the dimensions that you have in your drilled down path. That's this little drop down. What's cool here is that in a lot of systems, you actually have to come in and manually code in these drill down paths. Adaptive is dynamic. So as soon as I save a new dimension, and when I say dimension, it's just another way to carve out your data or look at your data. It'll be automatically added to all of your reports and dashboards and drill down paths. So again, it's really taking that burden off of you having to remember to go through and add this everywhere. But for instance, if I want to drill into my net revenue and figure out, okay, where is this coming from? I can go ahead and see all of my different locations. From there, I can even break this down further into the different products that are being sold. This is more from a tangible goods point of view, but you can imagine you can do this by different service lines, anything along those lines. Just a couple of other things to show. You can see some different variety in our waterfall charts. You can stack different types of charts together. There's really no limit to the type of data that you can combine here. What you can also do is actually bring your budget models directly onto the dashboards. So as you make changes on these sheets, all of the graphs on the dashboard will actually update. And so that means if you're in a meeting or a board meeting and your CFO, okay, what if we actually exceed sales by 15% or we miss them by 5%? What does that do to our top line numbers? You can actually make that change right here. And you'll be able to get an answer to that question right away. In terms of sharing these dashboards, you have a few different options. You can always download images, so that'll be more of a static image. If you're actually in a presentation, there is a presentation mode for those of you who are kind of PowerPoint averse and just want to be able to pop up these different charts and graphs for focus. And what you can also do is actually set up snapshot schedules to have these summaries, your financial top lines, anything along those lines automatically sent to certain individuals. So again, going back to your CFO, if they have a specific set of metrics that they like to see every Monday morning, just automate it so they see this nice little summary pop up in their email box over their morning coffee. So in terms of actually building some of this out, everything in Adaptive is drag and drop. So when I'm making, let's just say I'm going to make a test perspective, go ahead and save that off. We're going to be a total company, and I'm going to edit this. There is no coding really involved in Adaptive anywhere. So what you can do here is just drag on your different charts. So we have things like KPIs, waterfalls, as I mentioned, which we all know are not incredibly fun to build out in Excel. And what we're going to see here in my account list is I have access to not only my GL account data, but also things like workforce data. So my FTEs, being able to come down to my different metric accounts if you want to look at EBITDA or your contribution margin, anything along those lines. So it's being able, again, to have that single source of truth. So for now, what I'll do is actually just take my operating expenses. So obviously not that informative right this second, but what we can do is come into type and break that data down by different dimensions. So in this case, I want to look at my OpEx by my different locations, and I'm seeing that right here. And again, you can still save this off and drill down and see where that data is coming from. So as I kind of move through different types of reporting and visualization in Adaptive, just be thinking about the level of granularity and insight this can actually give you into not only one data source, but all of your data in one place. Sweet. So that's going to be it on dashboards for today. We have a bunch of these built out for different industries. I'm happy to kind of talk through different use cases depending on what industry you are in a separate follow-up demo. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and jump into Sheets. We're going to start with P&L. Again, when I say Sheets, I'm just talking about where I'm doing my planning. So to be able to make some edits, I'm going to pretend, again, that I'm our Sales North manager. And so here, you'll see a couple of different colors. Green is going to be my actuals numbers. Black are going to be my plan or budget, and that can either be coming from a supporting schedule, it can be calculated, you can manually enter it, bunch of variety there. But what I like to call it here is that you aren't having to go back to your ERP to kind of compare your budget to your actuals or anything like that. On usually a daily basis, your actuals are just updating here. You do also have the option on an end user by end user basis to just check out how you're actually doing your to be able to change your view. So things like your time roll-ups, version comparison, putting different charts. And what's really great there is, unlike in something like Google Sheets or something like that, where you make a change, you filter something and it impacts everyone's view. If I make a change to my personal view here, it's not going to impact anyone else. So if I want to see a version comparison directly on this sheet, I can do that. And Stan, when he's in the system, he's not going to see what view I changed. He can look at the data how he wants. A couple of elements to call out here. One is obviously going to be formulas. Everyone wants to know, is there coding? Answer again, no. So all of these fields with a little blue caret on them are calculated fields. Adaptive uses plain English to tell you exactly what's happening in the formula. So here up in the formula bar, you can see that I'm taking my FTE account from personnel and just multiplying it by that assumption, my telephone assumption. Someone was even kind enough to leave a little note here. And there's a formula wizard to kind of help you figure out what accounts you want to multiply. But again, for those of you coming from Excel, it's kind of a pain to just see this be A2 times B70. and have to go hunting, this actually just tells you exactly what sheets and accounts it's pulling from. For those of you who have kind of a very notes-based communicative workflow, you are able to leave notes on all of your report or all of your sheets, and those will pull through to reports for your review. Entering data, there are a bunch of ways to do that outside of integration and kind of that manual import. One option is just to come in. Let's say I know I'm going to have a flat training budget of $1,000 a month. I can go ahead and copy that forward. So I have that for every month. One other item that honestly a lot of our clients find really useful when they're entering their budgets is calling back to that financial intelligence and adaptive. So if I know I'm bumping up my new hire training by 4K this year, I can go ahead and enter that total budget for the financial year. And what I'll see is this little prompt to choose how I want to break that back across my time period. So here you can see proportionally using prior year values. That's the one that I like to show because it's honestly the most utility for your budget owners. Adaptive is actually looking at the past year's actuals to calculate a seasonality for this line item. And when I click OK, I can see that my new hire budget has been distributed not just on straight line, but by actually looking at my seasonality from the previous year. So I'll go ahead and save off those changes. One other piece here that I'll get into is just being able, again, to drill down into our data. As I mentioned earlier, if you see a number, you can click on it. So what I'll do here for my salary and wages is come into Explore Cell. Hopefully this looks pretty familiar to everybody. And I'm actually just going to drill down. I want to know where the salary detail is coming from. So before anyone gets too alarmed about, oh my gosh, everybody can see personnel data. No, they can't. There's a little checkbox on the back end of user permissions that you can disable salary detail permissions. So if I'm not in my admin account, I'm not given access to that, all I'll see is this top line number for my department. I won't be able to see these contributing rows of individuals. So I'm actually going to follow this all the way through to our workforce planning sheet. This is going to be on an individual basis. If any of you are in healthcare or retail, managing a lot of part-time workers, we can also do role-based personnel planning. But this is going to be another type of sheet. Again, I'm not going to get into too much technical detail here, but basically you can configure columns however you'd like. A lot of these drop downs are based on dimensions that are referring to those assumptions. So if you're in HR or something along those lines, Adaptive is actually going to be able to calculate your taxes, benefits, fringe benefits, all of that on an individual basis at your different locations. Even here, you can see that we've entered kind of a max for our taxes, and Adaptive knows, hey, this individual has hit their limit for this tax, drop it off until January of next year. So again, I know this is a little bit more on the technical side, but I really wanted to highlight how granular you can get with your plan in Adaptive. It's really about driving accuracy and visibility so you can make better planning decisions for your organization. So on that note, there's obviously a lot more we could explore in terms of modeling. I would encourage you to reach out. There's so much, but I'm going to go ahead and cover two final elements, web reporting and Office Connect. So web reporting is going to be our kind of in-browser report mechanism. You can see here, again, I have a ton of different reports. This is all going to be customizable, and I'll actually show you how to build these out. But when I come into Adaptive, you can see this is a bit of a busy report, but the reason I built it like this is so you can see everything that's available in web reporting. So right now you can see that I have those little notes that I mentioned from the P&L. Right now they're in line, but if you would prefer these to be footnotes or kind of over here on the side, you can absolutely do that. We have some conditional formatting to kind of flag exactly where I might need to spend some more attention. And as I've mentioned a few times, I can click on all of these numbers. So I see this is a very significant difference in T&E between my actuals version and my budget version. So what I want to do is click into this number, and we're going to see a new option in our Cell Explorer called Drill into Transactions. So let me go ahead and click in there. And what you're going to see is, again, really line item granular detail on the transactions that are driving my actuals. So this is a really great way, if you see a variance, to be able to come in and be like, okay, this journal entry right here was not keyed in correctly. It should have been about $2,600. They put 2.6 million. So obviously there's probably not that large of a variance happening in your T&E or something like that, but just highlighting an example of how having all of your data centralized in one area can really help you identify any sort of issues quite quickly and figure out who you need to talk to get them resolved. So a couple more elements on reports. One is going to be, again, security. So if I have access to only Sales North, again, I'm only going to see Sales North in my dropdown. This entire report will go ahead and be filtered to Sales North. So we see all of that has been updated. Another option, just to show you how dynamic reports are, is you can click on any of these accounts. And as we've seen multiple times, again, Adaptive really likes consistency. We see this nice little drill down path. So what I'll do here is go ahead and pivot my salary and wages by function. So kind of a different way for us to group our GL account. And I'm now seeing that GL account grouped by sales and marketing, R&D, G&A. You kind of get the idea. This is where we can start getting into some cool management reporting or anything along those lines. The last piece that I wanted to show here was just the backend interface. So hopefully this will look really similar to what we just saw with dashboards. But again, you have all of the elements we've loaded into Adaptive right here. So from an accounts perspective, just like in dashboards, you not only have access to your GL data, but if you are bringing in, let's say, CRM data or vendor contract data, anything along those lines, I can click and drag as many of these accounts as I want. So I'm not just limited to reporting on GL data by itself. Maybe I want GL with an FTE line so I can reference my employee count, that kind of thing. And then anything with a plug is just going to be a nice little parameter. Parameters are going to be those drop-down menus on the front end that just tell me, hey, instead of creating a new report to compare my like previous budget version to actuals or differences between my different budget versions, you can just utilize that drop down. You also do have the option to run these reports as Excel or PDF. So not everyone has to have a login to Adaptive. If you want to be able to share one of these reports, you can just run it as Excel and it'll go ahead and generate an Excel export for you. Cool. This just quickly is another one I like to show, and then we'll hop into our final piece for today. Just a three financial statement report. So being able to look at your income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow all together with a few different financial metrics. Again, everything's still clickable so that you can explore. So instead of having to pull a bunch of different reports, everything's in one place because I stacked it like that. Cool. So we're going to quickly hop into the last piece that I wanted to show today, which is called Office Connect. So Office Connect is a plugin for the entire Microsoft 365 suite. That means PowerPoint, Word, and Excel. And what it allows you to do is connect your kind of usually board presentations directly to Adaptive. So for those of you who have to do quarterly board reports or who want to be able to do monthly board reports, this is really going to help expedite that process for you. So a few things to call out here. One is going to be the security permissions from Adaptive carry over into Excel. So you do log in with your Adaptive credentials, and that's going to say, hey, I can still only view the data that I'm allowed to access. So again, with that consistency and also the consistency with the elements we can access. When I highlight linked cells, everything that's blue is going to be my data that's linked directly to Adaptive. Green are going to be my actual dynamic labels. So as I refresh this report, you'll see those change. Before I actually do refresh the report, you've heard me say this so many times, but again, clicked on a number, I can explore cell back into Adaptive, and from my report, actually see again where that data is coming from. So this is all built on drag and drop. So if I come in here, you can see a couple of these rows are blank. So I'm just going to come in and grab those GL accounts. So my taxes and benefits through other expense. I'll go ahead and highlight this and drag it over. Part 2 to this is right now you can see it's in February. Let's say it's March and I'm ready to run my board report. I'm going to come into workbook properties. And instead of having to go through the pain of tracking down all this data again and rebuilding reports, I'm just going to take a couple of clicks, roll my report date forward to March, and refresh. And so when I refresh, you see that not only did this update to March with my actuals and working budget, it also went ahead and brought in all of that GL data. Adaptive will add Office Connect will add any new GL accounts here as well. So if I add 6140 in Adaptive, when I refresh this report, it'll go ahead and show up here. You retain full Excel functionality with your nice graphs and charts if there's any formatting you really love. And the last piece I'll call out here is a lot of companies like to be able to generate these types of reports by different departments or split it across product lines or store locations. So instead of having to duplicate this manually every time you open a new branch or something like that, you can come into repeating reports and actually select whatever levels or departments you want to be able to create this report for. So I'll pick a couple of different countries. And here you'll see that I now have my formatted P&L for total company, the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom. So in summary, I know that was super quick. There's a lot of power behind Office Connect. It's a top feature for a lot of our clients. And that really is because boards want a lot of visibility. Your investors, anything along those lines, and this is going to be able to give it to them on a very quick basis. Whew, okay, I know that was a lot. I'm going to go ahead and actually pass it back to Stan to close us out for today. I'll follow up with any other, or we will follow up on any questions that we didn't have time to get to. But from there, I will pass it back to you, Stan.
Okay, thank you, Haley. Hopefully everyone saw how powerful, flexible, and especially how easy Adaptive is to use with the simple drag and drop functionality. If you need more, we have plenty of resources we can make available to you, such as a one-on-one demonstration that speaks more to your specific needs. We can offer up return on investment sessions to quantify the value of this investment, hands-on workshops, and even get your hands on a trial too. Just let us know what makes sense for you when we connect in our follow-up meeting, or reach out to me directly. We are happy to help you. We encourage you to learn more about Revelwood and our implementation approach by visiting our website at revelwood.com. While you are there, we also encourage you to visit our Knowledge Center, where we can offer tips and tricks about all aspects of the planning process. Technical tips on the tool, planning tips about the budgeting processes, and various tips on other business aspects of your FP&A model. Lastly, thank you for attending, and one of my colleagues will be reaching out for a 15-minute follow-up call with you here shortly. Hopefully you will take the time to share your feedback and let us know how else we can help. Everyone have a great rest of the day. And thank you again for attending.